Hello, yeah, I think I'm live. This is going to be a Quickfix live chat type thing that we do, with our artists specifically on the Singles Club today. We're going to be chatting with the new Singles Club member, which is The Great Unfinished, if he can find his way in, hopefully. And then right now you should be hearing, hello, you should be, I'm going to say hi to everybody that's coming. Hello, this is my remix of the new tracks by The Great Unfinished, and he's going to be joining us. I gave it away, there's just one person already. Hi, I'm going to say hi to everybody. Right, so he's in the room, so just send it to... So we should be connecting now from England. Hello.
Hello. Hi.
How are you doing? Wow, you have a lot of amps all around you.
I do, yeah. This is my addiction room.
I'm quite jealous.
Yeah, I've got a bit of a problem. That's only a few of them.
Really, is it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is your favourite?
Just now, I'm digging the JVM. So the Marshall JVM. That's the Joe Satriani edition. So it's the Joe Satriani edition, which has got, instead of reverb, it's got a noise gate built into every channel. Right, so cool. It's just really, really useful.
Yeah, wicked, awesome. So yeah, and yeah, well, hello anyway, and cheers for doing the chat with us. Anyway, it's good to, like, we try and get like people to know like the bands that are obviously on the club and everything, if they want to be known. So thanks for wanting to be known. Some don't, some want to keep it quite low key and stuff. Not like low key and Thor, the other type of low key, but yeah.
Yeah. Do you know what? I can kind of understand that, but I suppose it's easy to stay in your bubble and just keep putting your music out, I think. But I think, yeah, if you're really going to promote yourself, you need to be prepared to do things that you're not comfortable with and get comfortable just doing things like this.
Yeah, I mean, it's all rough with the smooth, isn't it? Like, if you go and play a gig, you've got all the travel and the loading in of all your stuff and all the slog and the eating some awful food because it was the closest thing that you could get or whatever.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, everything about it is pretty much like not what you'd choose, apart from the half an hour to an hour, depending how long you get to play. Do you know what I mean? Like that you're on stage, and so it's just about taking the. I think there's the same with putting music out. You just got to kind of, take the right. I don't like social media at all, really. It's just a necessary evil. If someone gives you a billboard or a platform or something, and it's free, and you can reach more people that way, then it's just smart to take advantage of it, really. And
yeah, definitely yeah, it's a hard slog though. That's the thing. I mean, there is so many people out there, and it is such a I wouldn't say it's more difficult now for a new artist. I think it's easier than it's ever been just to start recording and putting your own music out. The tools to do that are a lot easier, but I think people like promoting through social media. I think people are completely bombarded with everything all the time. And it is quite hard to kind of stop them while they're scrolling and get their attention. And even if you're putting out your best music, I think it's hard.
Yeah, it's not really, I mean, it's about so many more things than that, I think, especially when you consider each platform of social media and what people particularly go to that for and everything like that. It is like, it's really easy to think like, okay, well, I put this out and, like that should kind of be it now. Do you know what I mean? Like people should start flocking in or whatever. But being honest, you're like, it's like chucking like a little drop of water into the ocean and going, where's my drop? Hang on. Do you know what I mean? Oh, I think I see it over there. Do you know what?
Yeah, exactly. And do you know what? I've dabbled with sort of Facebook ads and things like that, and I haven't had a huge amount of success. But again, it's a long game. I think you basically run a few ads, you get back the intelligence from that, so you get the sort of person who's clicking it and liking it,
Yeah, yeah,
and then you kind of find your audience, and then after a long period of time, you can start to direct it to the right people.
yeah.
Um, but it's a hard slog, and it's definitely not a part of it
Yeah,
I
and the
enjoy.
cost and a costly one as well. I mean, when you think about like
Yeah,
how poor streaming rates are, like
yeah,
it's the you have to have like several angles going on any Facebook ad you put out. You have to be, totally, using the analytics to the, best of your ability. You have to be probably multitasking that ad so that it's not just one thing that you're advertising, because you need something which is there, click and do it, but also maybe something else in case they don't, that they just is imprinted across their brain anyway. Do you know what I mean? And so,
yeah,
and to get your money's worth anyway, because by the time you've put out like, say, I want to break it into dollars because it's easier. Like say it's like $40 for a decent Facebook or Instagram ad that sees what, 10,000 people. Break that
yeah,
down to the amount of people who are actually going to take action on that. You're talking about like maybe 100, and like, and then you have 100 people streaming your song, and you make, well, to get to, on 1,000 people streaming your song, you're going to make anywhere between $1 and $4, depending what
right, exactly.
territories, which quarter of the season it was, and everything like that. So basically, you're never going to make that kind of money with that. So you've got to have like multiple angles. Maybe you've got some merch or something, and you can be selling that, so
Yeah,
you've actually got something where you make a profit. But if you're just saying, "Here's my song," do you know what I mean? There's just no way you can make, like, you can't. It's an
yeah,
investment in your future as a brand, and I hate saying that word, even like, ugh, it makes me want to vomit as I say it. Do you know what I mean? But like for your thing, which is your gang, whatever it is, like basically you've got to get that known, and if you that's a slow building process, and these platforms won't help you unless you're feeding, a little bit of
yeah.
money into them as well. So that's just how it
Maybe
goes.
that's the reality of the situation just now, though, is there is no money in music, not music on its own, because the way people are receiving music is through streaming platforms now. So
Sorry,
you
would you
have to.
repeat that? So I just got lost in these. Someone said T-Gun is my DIY inspiration. It just came up across your face as I was looking at you.
Uh,
So yeah, that's from In Crust I Trust. And
oh, cool.
Max said AA meeting amps anonymous, which, yeah, I don't have that bad an addiction, but yeah, I could be your
Yeah,
therapist or something, I guess, couldn't I, and help you with
yeah.
that. But sorry, and William Meechan said you have merch. Well, if you can, for every band, it's like if you can afford to actually make that investment in merch, then, and all that kind of business, isn't it? Which is a whole nother thing, isn't it? So, but
Well,
what were you
well,
saying?
exactly.
Sorry.
Yeah, I was just saying that probably along the same lines as William was saying there, is that there is no money in music. Only the biggest artists are actually making any money out of streaming platforms, and even then, it's just a fraction of what they would have made out of that record if it was physical before. Um, so I think the key is cracking where do you diversify? Where's the other angles? Where can you make that money? Um, or just accepting that you're never going to make any money
Yeah, yeah.
and keep
And
the day
have more
job.
fun and have
Yeah,
more fun with it. Yeah, yeah, I know.
yeah,
Without the constraints of, well, I mean, for my own personal music, I've definitely kind of made like a decision to kind of like, I'm just going to do what I'm going to do, and I'm not expecting anything or anybody to even like it at this point. It's such a random smash together of everything I like, and I wouldn't expect
yeah,
someone to like all those things if they were chucked in a pot necessarily anyway. I probably wouldn't like to hear someone else doing it. So yeah,
yeah,
so I just kind of decided, oh well, whatever with that. And but it is really disparaging when you're doing a label and there's like you're working with like tons of bands of all, lots of different types and lots of different levels and everything, and you're seeing this kind of repeated pattern of it's just not enough. Do you know what I mean? The streaming model is just not enough. But yeah, I don't want to get too wrapped up in that anyway.
yeah, yeah,
But I mean, one of the things that is one of the reasons we actually do this is, try and get people involved and throw a little like spotlight on what they're doing, because they're doing something cool, if you know what I mean. And it was first your the Hunter S. Thompson Ate My Baby, which I recommend as soon as you finish this, especially Max, if you're still in the chat, you'll love Hunter S. Thompson Ate My Baby by The Great Unfinished. So go and stream that when we finish. but yeah, it was that song that like I immediately, as soon as I put it on, I was like, oh, this is a banger. And yeah, it just reminded me of all loads of good things that I like, especially Therapy, which is one of my
Yeah, me too.
favorite
Me
bands.
too. Yeah, I mean, interestingly, I got, I think around about the same time last year, I kind of put a post on Facebook which was, give me a song title and I'll write you a song.
Yeah,
And the idea was that people, part of it was kind of self-serving as well, because if I went into the hassle of writing them a song, then they'd listen to it and then they might share it and so on and
right,
so
sure,
forth.
yeah.
But I actually got loads of great ideas from it, and from my last three EPs, there's been a song that has been born out of that sort of
Right, on each one,
Facebook post. Yeah, and Hunter S. Thompson, Ate My Baby was one of them. It wouldn't be a title I would come up with on my
yeah. It's
own,
a
but
gift, isn't it? Yeah.
yeah. But if you sort of challenge yourself to, okay, I can. It's got to be a crazy song. It's got to be mad.
Yeah.
And then I just took it from there, and then the video idea just fell in my lap, which was brilliant.
Yeah, wicked. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
it is. It's the a fitting soundtrack to that title. So yeah, but yeah. So
yeah,
from there, I was just like, oh, cool. And then we actually had like a couple of songs that we couldn't really use because you've got so many good songs, and we actually had a couple of songs we couldn't use because they just wouldn't be worth putting the effort behind as a single because they wouldn't get the airplay because they're swearing and stuff like that. So
yeah,
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 so we ended up on this one, which I still think is a total, crazy banger. Which is like it's really good that you've, well, it's good that you don't swear in all your songs for a start, but then
yeah,
also it's good that you have yeah, like such a wide range of great kind of potential singles, like or like what I call like hits, because I don't really care if it's a
yeah, yeah.
potential single.
Well, do you know, I think I think I'm writing enough just now that I can pick the best ones out of it, rather than.
Right.
I think if I was writing maybe even half the amount I was writing just now, I would
You'd
either
use
be
more.
releasing
Yeah.
I'd be releasing half of what I'm doing, or I
All
would
right.
be there would be songs that are less as good being
Yeah.
released. So I think that helps that I've kind of got a bank of about 100 songs now,
Yeah, to choose
um,
from. It really does.
and a lot of them, I'm just looking for the right EP, so the one that goes with.
Yeah.
Um,
That becomes a
uh,
struggle after a while, doesn't it? It's like I've got like albums which are like, oh, well, I guess those ones are going to be on that album, those ones are going to be on that, and it's just like finishing it off and like kind of like going, okay, right, those ones are definitely there, and that's enough for that one, and that completes the theme, or feels whole or
yeah,
something.
yeah, no, that's it exactly. And um, I I've actually got songs that are about 3 and 4 years old that I'm still planning on releasing at one stage. I just haven't
Yeah.
found the right EP that
Yeah.
would go on. Or,
It's just when their time comes, really, isn't it? Like,
yeah,
I think that's borne out by like loads of like songs which came out on, certain albums were actually written way before. I was just reading something earlier about like Nirvana, about how like what was it? Dumb was written like before Nevermind, and which ended up on In Utero. And there was another one that was like that was from before then as well. Maybe I can't remember which the other one was, but yeah, but stuff that was like considerably. It was like kind of Bleach era or something apparently. So
yeah,
that's crazy, isn't
yeah,
it? So so yeah, so I think songs just their time comes and everything, doesn't it? So yeah, so you
yeah,
got a bit. So you got a bit sick of this one after getting it, after all the going through the mixing.
yeah. Do you know what? It was a weird one, but um, I tend to mix really quickly, and then I go away from it for a week, and then I go back and I do the final mix. And it kind of um, my mixes can always be better. That was what I would say, but I
Yeah,
don't labour them to the point that
sure.
because I did find kind of early on that um, the more work I put into a mix, the further and further away it came away from what I was trying to
The
get
intention,
over.
the original intention,
Yeah,
right? Yeah,
and really what I'm trying to do is sort of lo-fi alternative
sure,
rock.
sure.
Um, and if you work it too much, it just
Yeah,
becomes
yeah,
well, modern
yeah,
rock,
yeah,
and then
yeah.
there's
Of course, yeah.
maybe that just goes with the stage I'm at as a producer as well, and that I probably don't have the skills to take a mix to the level that a professional mixer would take a
Right, right.
polished
I think it still
rock.
retains its. I think it's the right side of it. It came out the right. Like it still sounds definitely alternative, but it like everything comes through right. If you know what I mean. Like it's
Yeah,
more about
I
like
mean,
if you've got like some really good hooks, it's a shame to like have them submerged or anything. So I think it just propels itself, especially with this kind of song with a big. It's quite a message song as opposed to some maybe more oblique or something. Do you know what I mean? So
yeah,
you want like some So I think you and all the hooks guitar wise and stuff like that. I think it's it's the right track to do it with. It like if you again go back to Therapy that we both like. There's like definite examples of songs of theirs that are very much produced differently. To like take the Suicide Pact You First album and like I don't know even the one right before it, Semi Detached, and
yeah.
they're like totally different albums, like sonically and to do with some of the writing as well, I guess. But there are songs that you could have done on either that would
Yeah,
both sounded. Do you know what I mean? So a lot of it is about that. I think they're really good at knowing when they've got one where you need to be able to completely all the hooks and stuff.
although interestingly, and this is kind of detracting a wee bit, or
Mm,
moving away a wee bit from my music. I've
that's all
kind of
right.
been, I've kind of been listening to the production of commercial records over the last couple
Hmm.
of years, and listening to them with the producer's ear, just trying to see what they
Yeah.
do and how
Hmm.
can I learn from this. And one thing I have noticed is that the standard of production is definitely reduced.
Yes,
I've
absolutely. Well,
I've talked,
it's not just the standard. It's also how the records are being made.
yeah,
Like a lot of them are being made a lot cheaper, and not in great studios with great mics and full drum
yeah.
kits, and a lot of being pieced together in digital. It's like basically as there's not as much money to make, then they're going to spend as much money making them. Do you know what I
Exactly,
mean?
exactly.
So.
But I mean, it's even hitting big artists. I think. I
Hmm.
think. Like, I mean, if you take a band like Megadeth, for example,
Hmm.
like um, back in the early '90s, they were. If you look at one of the biggest albums, like Countdown to Extinction, um, that was probably the most perfectly mixed album, and the most polished. And then even Euthanasia after it was kind of perfectly recorded and polished.
Right.
But that's when the record company were throwing like £1 million at the
Yeah, yeah,
recording.
yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
and you could tell that the money was dropping off later on as the later albums came out
Yeah,
because they couldn't recapture that quality. But
yeah.
it's a shame, I think. Well, maybe it's something we just have to live with for a while
Well,
until,
it's hard to know, isn't it? Because at the ultimately, it's the at the very end of the day, like it's in the hands of the audience. Like that,
yeah,
like when it really, really comes down to it, it's in the hands of the audience whether they what format they want to listen to things on, whether audio quality is important to them, whether the artist being paid is important to them. Like
yeah,
there's like so many things to navigate. Whether convenience is king, whether it is even fair that like if you stream movies, you've got different stuff on your Netflix to on your Amazon to on your Disney Plus because of licensing. But if you go
yeah,
on any streaming platform, all the music you could ever want, and also it's really if you go on film streaming things, there's tons of classics you can't watch, and tons of like second rung films by really big actors and stuff. Like you can't. There's lots of Al
yeah,
Pacino that you can't stream. Do you know what I mean? But if you go on looking for Jimi Hendrix, Led Zeppelin, something like that, you can hear like most of their work, like ever. So there's
yeah,
a huge imbalance in that, and ultimately the audience is quite happy to kind of go, yeah, it's convenient, and yeah, it's pretty cheap and everything, and yeah, ultimately, I don't really have time to like sit there and listen to a record anymore because I'm working every day of
Yeah,
every minute of my life. Do you know what I mean? So it's like I
yeah,
understand, but the long-term impact of all of this is going to be the culture dies. Do you know what I mean? So
yeah, yeah. And I suppose it is about the consumer. So younger people are probably there's probably a whole generation who have never bought a CD, for example,
sure.
who have only streamed music, and they consume songs one at a time. They
Hmm.
add it to a playlist, and
Yeah,
they
well, or
wouldn't
they find it on a
necessarily.
playlist.
Yeah, or
Yeah,
they wouldn't ordinarily they wouldn't necessarily go and find that artist and
yeah,
start following that artist
yeah, yeah.
until they maybe heard two or three songs that kind of appealed to them. So,
Maybe even then.
uh so it's a do you know it's an odd one, but I suppose the the consumer um dictates how it's produced and how it goes out. You're right.
But it's the same. It's the same with the movies. If you see how many people are, obviously pirating like big budget movies and everything, and you see the drop in how movies are made, like hence something like Marvel, where they've got a fairly kind of cost effective system for putting things together and everything.
Yeah,
Then suddenly you see everyone in the industry go, "Oh, does that work then? And is that cost effective? Brilliant. Well, let's all do that." Suddenly, like, and don't get me wrong, Marvel have their own problem keeping their stuff fresh, but like at the same time, it's not helped at all by like then suddenly every single franchise thing is using the exact same methods to put their movies together.
yeah,
Same, legacy cast member who appears in it like for what 3 days shooting. Do you know what I mean? And then meanwhile, bulk out with tele actors, tele level actors in a green screen room for the most part. Hardly any location stuff, hardly any. Do you know what I mean? Like it all
yeah,
becomes like, well, hardly any practical effects, et cetera, et cetera. It's the cheapest way of doing it. So, so unfortunately, and that's because they know that they're only going to make so much back. And that's why certain cinema, films like book out, like when the Bond movie was about, there's tons of movies that
yeah,
didn't even get a look in because they booked out every,
yeah,
what's the name,
yeah,
room in the cinema. Do you know what I mean? So at the moment, the big guys are only winning because they're squashing the little guy totally out. Same way that, Tesco or Sainsbury's or whatever will move into your local place and suddenly four local businesses die up that street. Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
It's
yeah.
the same thing, but just happening in the world of entertainment, not even arts. It's just entertainment in general. That we could call it art would be such a luxury at this point, wouldn't
Yeah,
it?
yeah. I suppose it's easier to write well, yeah, no, it's definitely easier to write a song than it is to make a whole movie.
Yeah, absolutely. But I wonder, I
Yeah,
would consider like an album more to be like a movie, because bringing all the people together, the amount of work. It's easy to
yeah,
make an album if you're like one of these guys who's, like us who can just lock ourselves away and just make stuff with doing it all ourselves, kind of thing. Or better
yeah,
yet, Prince or someone where they can just go in and make a work of genius in 2 weeks on their own and like not even sleep. Do you know what I mean? So
yeah,
but
yeah,
I think those artists aren't necessarily cultivated because people want like something that's definitely going to work really quickly, and usually that's so they can control lots of the factors in there, the songwriting or the production or whatever
yeah.
else it is. Do you know what I mean? So you don't get as much
So,
investment in a long term thing. Prince only got big on like what albums, five or six. Beatles only got around to really pushing the limits on like album what five or six. Do you know what I mean? Queen, I think it's a similar kind of story. Do you know what I mean? Like
yeah, yeah,
there's no investment in the long term thing now. It's really, really, I would fear for bands going in with the thing of like, oh well, we'll get better. Good luck then.
yeah, yeah. And that's the thing as well. I mean, I suppose I've got about 50 songs out now, and I would say production wise, they're certainly improving all the time.
Yeah,
Um, but I think if I had waited though to release something till I thought it was good enough production wise,
perfect.
that
Yeah, yeah.
it would have just been procrastination,
Hmm.
and I would have really just ended up doing nothing. So there's something to be said, I
Absolutely.
think, about just doing it
No,
and getting
I
out there.
absolutely agree. What
Yeah,
I say is like making it in the industry or getting signed to a major
yeah,
or anything like that. If you want to make music, the best way you can do it is just get the hell on with it. Like talking about
yeah,
Nirvana, you can trace those roots right down to like the very beginnings of that idea and then see what it turned into. Do you know what I mean? And I think one of the great things
yeah,
people forget about the Beatles in, in Hamburg, like, and all, like, all the work that goes into making that thing that ends
yeah,
up being the
yeah,
thing that gets there. And people just need to get out there and get on with it, and and stop waiting for permission from anybody. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
that's the least rock and roll thing you can do.
Yeah, so I suppose it leads us back to social media, and if you had one target, your target would be probably to find your audience. So if you look at it, maybe there's so many billion people in the world.
Hmm.
If 1%, so that's one in every 100 people liked your music, which sounds, I mean, even if you're doing something quite obscure, 1 in 100 doesn't sound like a bad stat. So if you could get 1 in 100, you'd be the biggest band ever.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the key now, the game now is just to get out, to find your audience, get out to that.
It is. It's also a bit hard because well, what they there's like different levels of fandom, and obviously back when we were young, for example, that it was the minimum level of fandom was required like an investment of anywhere between £10 and £15 for a CD, or do you know what I mean? Or something like that,
Yeah.
or you might go and see the band and everything. And obviously, well, I mean, on a basic just listening basis, you could tape stuff off the radio and you could, get copies off people. But you usually ended up getting it yourself anyway if you really liked it and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So the minimum kind of, I kind of like this was like quite a lot of expense. Whereas now the basic of like, even if you really like it, you could just stream it forever. And
Yeah.
do you know what I mean? And that trickle down. Whereas to get someone where they like want to buy like something physical, that's unfortunately what you're talking about. And finding even a 1 in 100 people that wants to actually buy something physical, harder than you think.
Yeah.
Do you
Yeah.
know what
Yeah.
I
Definitely. Definitely.
mean?
But I mean, I suppose we'd all be happy if 1 in 100 listened, though. Um,
Yeah, yeah,
and you,
even listen,
yeah,
yeah,
then you'd be
even
on
getting
Pharrell
them to listen
Williams
at this
money.
point is a victory. Yeah, yeah. And
um,
Leon's got a good point as well. With small venues closing and everything, then it really does freeze. It's the 30, 40, 50, then 80, 70, 80, 100 quid experience to go and see the kind of, either hot thing or the legendary thing. Do you know what I mean? So
yeah,
you end up with that, and that's a really important place for bands to be able to go up and down the country and make make money
yeah.
on their merch and everything.
I don't know if that's maybe just a post-COVID thing though. So, like during COVID, a lot of bars closed, a lot of clubs closed, and all that, and for obvious reasons, because they never had the reserves to support the business over that
Hmm.
length of time. Um, and uh, so, what you'll probably find is they'll all just change hands. Someone will start a new business and go and start up that club or venue, but I think it'll take a while before we see that.
Unfortunately, they usually start up a restaurant in its place, or
Uh,
turn it into flats and things like that. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's usually, yeah, I don't know. Unfortunately, things, there should be a law in a way, because our culture isn't really protected in the same way as, say, older, like classical music fans, and even jazz music fans to a degree look after their culture and keep it precious and alive, and that people can't mess with it, like old venues of
yeah,
note in
yeah,
classical thing. You can't mess with them. They're always going to be a classical venue, but meanwhile our venues just they're like, never mind if they, I heard today about in Manchester, which one is it, Night and Day. It's just about to celebrate its 30th anniversary, and it's had someone who moved in like saying, "Oh, it's too noisy." It's like, come on, man! It's a 30-year-old venue. If you move in,
yeah,
you should know the score. Do you know what I mean? And these things can even be taken seriously is like, it just shows how little our culture is protected, really. And
Yeah, no, no. I think you're right. That's a ridiculous one. I mean, if someone moves in
it's
next
so
to a
common though.
venue,
Like the venue in Bath had it. The I can't remember what it's called now. It's changed many times. The Nest, most recently, it had it, and people, moved in knowing full well it's been a club and a venue and whatever for however long, and sure enough, complaints. Do you know what I mean? It happens all the time. It's
yeah,
just
yeah,
stupid.
mad.
And then they seem like the reasonable ones somehow. Do you know what I mean? Like what?
Yeah, and it's not as if we have all night venues. Like, okay, if you move in next to a nightclub, you're
Yeah.
probably go you're probably going to have people up till 4 o'clock. But
Well, the problem is a lot of these nightclubs actually make a ton of money, so they can actually, they don't really have the same kind of problems. Do you know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah,
They're very big established super clubs that, bring a lot, bring a lot of business down that street or whatever. And so, the council turn a blind eye to, like, you go down, like anybody from Oxford who's watching this, which I know there's a couple, will know exactly what I'm talking about. If you go down Park End Street anytime on the weekend, it's a disaster. It's a disaster area. Do you know what I mean? But people turn a blind eye to that, like, but meanwhile, if you have a little bit of a rumble or something, you know what I mean?
yeah, yeah,
So yeah, so I think we are, yeah, and not to make it a depressing chat, but I think it is under threat, unfortunately. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's huge lack of understanding. Even Elton John said, like our government are like Philistines. Do you know what I mean? They just, and said, it's all right for him, but like, what about for anybody who's actually trying to do anything? Do you know what I mean? And that was with regard to the whole Brexit thing, and the like, as in it affecting travel for musicians around Europe, and also to do with the COVID handout, like in terms of handouts that were given to other industries, and meanwhile the music
yeah,
industry that
yeah,
takes so much doesn't get
yeah.
anything. Do you know what I mean? So
It's almost like being a musician or an entertainer is is not classed as a job.
yeah, yeah. Well,
Whereas,
I had a great conversation with the dude from King Crash, and he said the worst thing we did was sell it as magic, when we should have just said it as like hard work. And
yeah, yeah,
then people would, respect that there's a lot of time, a lot of effort goes into getting it right and doing it well. Do you know what I mean? And instead we kind of like that thing of God-given talent and everything, all that, like the
yeah, yeah, yeah.
mystery bit, that kind of spoiled
Hmm.
it for us in the long run. In the short run, it was great, got everybody like, woo, what's that? But in the long run, they went, oh, well, you just do that. You should do that as a hobby. If you want to do something like that, you shouldn't get paid for it. Oh yeah, sure, I'll listen to music every day.
Yeah,
You know
exactly,
what I
exactly.
mean? so,
Uh,
so yeah.
yeah.
But anyway, getting back to you. So what are your plans for the future for music and stuff? Apart from the bleak future that we just mapped out. What are you gonna do?
Yeah, well, I'm basically releasing an EP every 3 months just now.
hmm
So, what I might do um, next year or maybe mid next year is do an album.
Yeah.
Um, but what um, what I'm also working on is a live band. So I've been
Yeah.
putting all this together on my own, and now I've sort of teamed up with another songwriter, and what we're going to do is we're going to work together on more live tracks,
Cool.
and then I can. So those are the stuff that's going to be maybe a bit more punkier and a bit more high energy and stuff that works live.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and then the great unfinished is going to become where I just develop as a songwriter. So
Awesome.
I take more chances. I
Yeah. Yeah.
uh, just try and get new ideas out and just
Yeah.
try
Yeah.
and develop it.
Wicked. That sounds great. And so, what's the lineup? What's your lineup of your band going to be? Like, you're going to get a drummer, and is this other
Yeah.
guy?
So
Are you doing bass and or guitar? Because obviously, I don't know. Because you you could do whatever.
yeah,
What does the other guy do?
he plays guitar.
Right.
So what we're going to do is we're both going to play guitar and share singing.
Yeah.
And we've got a bass player lined up and we've got a drummer. So
Wicked.
it's just a case of just getting us together now and getting the practice session
Awesome.
in place and
Awesome. You
learning
must
the
be really
songs.
excited to do that.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It's been a long time since I've been in a live band and
Yeah.
on stage and stuff, so I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, yeah, that would be like, yeah, that would be like a shot in the arm, wouldn't it? Yeah,
Yeah,
get me in
yeah.
a room. I haven't been in a room with a live band for way too long. So yeah, so I'm looking forward. Next year, I'm gonna get on with that. Just been pouring all my energies into the label this year, so there's barely time to do anything really. So
Yeah, and do you know what? The um, writing music, I think there's two sides to it. Like I get an absolute buzz out of writing music. So if I get a song that just comes together,
yeah,
then I get endorphins that I don't get anywhere else.
sure,
Um, but there's a different sort of endorphin from playing live
yeah,
that that um,
absolutely.
that I would love to get back as well.
Yeah, yeah. There's nothing. I've done a lot of things in my life, and there's nothing as good.
Yeah.
there's, there's nothing as good. Yeah. So yeah, wicked, awesome. So just get in a room and then what? Some gigs in the new year, I guess.
Yeah, so I don't want to be one of these bands that spends like years in
In
rehearsal. So
rehearsal room.
yeah, so I'm just picturing a couple of months once we've got the songs down,
Yeah, yeah.
we'll do as many gigs as
A
possible and just
gig is
do
worth 10 practices, as the old saying goes.
exactly,
Anyway, so
exactly.
why not
Yeah,
why not get paid to practice in front of people?
yeah, yeah,
Well, in theory, the pay. Why not get your petrol covered to practice in front of people?
yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly.
Yeah, you got to do
But
it for the as you say, the endorphins is a good motivation, isn't it? Because at least if you go in going, well, I might not get paid, but I know I'm going to get this rush. So like that's like people pay like to go bungee jumping and skydiving and all sorts of stuff, and they pay a lot of money just because they know they're going to get that rush. Do you know what I mean? So
yeah,
I guess going and getting a couple of weird guys to go and play in a smelly little place in front of some people.
yeah. Play a bit of shouty music with some attitude and
Yeah, yeah,
just
exactly.
enjoy yourself. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, it's many yeah, I've done it many times. So yeah, yeah, it's once you get it in your system, it's pretty hard to shake the need for it really as well. So yeah, but yeah, so
Yeah,
okay, so what's that band going to be called anyway?
yeah. We don't know yet.
Okay,
So we're working
watch
on
watch
the
that
sort of
space.
working title of Vitriol, but I know there's a band called In Vitriol,
Right,
so we'll probably ditch it. But
yeah,
Vitriol kind of gives
the theme, yeah,
uh,
the idea,
the
yeah.
theme. We were just trying to get some sardonic, angry, sarcastic music out.
Yeah, yeah, wicked.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean that sounds like a good fit for you. That sounds like what
yeah,
you pretty
yeah.
much already do anyway. So yeah, what would you say like? Because I mean, we mentioned therapy. You mentioned Megadeth. I'm guessing by the amount you knew about Megadeth that you're a fan of Megadeth. So what other things would you say like go in the mix?
Yeah, well, I was in high school probably. Well, I was in high school in the early '90s,
Yeah,
so I kind of there was kind of three camps round about then. There was the techno guys,
right,
which I could never get with.
right.
There was the Britpop, which
Yeah,
I didn't quite get either. So I went more towards just because my um, I used to love Queen and
sure.
rock and all that. I kind of get into Metallica and Megadeth, and then I kind of naturally kind of followed the waves of trends that came out because there was some really great music. So
Yeah, yeah,
when grunge came out, I loved grunge,
yeah,
but
yeah.
I still listened to my metal. There was a
Sure.
huge scene forming in the UK at that time as well, with Therapy and
Yeah,
Terrorvision
yeah,
and
yeah,
The Almighty and Paradise Lost and
yeah.
the Wild Hearts. Like some loads of absolutely brilliant things happening
Yeah,
on
yeah,
our doorstep.
Skunk Nancy,
Oh
yeah,
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah,
Rob Ultra, what's the name? Tons of great bands. Even I saw
yeah.
Dub War are playing get some
yeah,
gigs quite
yeah,
soon. And I was like, wow, awesome. I mean, most people know Skin Dread, I guess, like if they
yeah,
know
yeah,
like their
yeah.
rock and everything. But I was a big Dub War fan, like back in the I say big Dub War fan. I had like whatever stuff of theirs, and I'd seen them a couple of times. You know what I mean? I think that's as
Yeah.
much of a fan as you could be back then, really. And yeah, and I was trying to think of some others, like because that's it, Feeder, I guess, fit
Oh,
into
yeah,
that,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Um, yeah, TerraVision I love as well. Yeah, they
yeah. That did. Do you know, out of all the bands, I think in the 90s, now though, listening back to a lot of sort of Britpop, there was a lot of original stuff in there. It wasn't all Oasis and Stone
oh,
Roses. Um, yeah,
I'm very lucky
um,
to have grown up on
yeah,
so much different. I was in the
yeah,
dance camp and the Britpop camp
yeah,
and the metal
yeah,
camp and the funk and soul and hip hop camps and all of them. Yeah,
yeah,
I've always had like
yeah,
I think it's starting with Prince. Like starting with Prince, you have so many things,
yeah. I get
and then
that.
when you do find the weird indie kind of thing, it's like so different to all those different other musics that Prince already showed
Uh-huh.
you. You're like, oh,
Yeah,
what's this little world as well? So you kind of like, so it just becomes like, okay, I like everything, but only the good stuff.
yeah, yeah. And I kind of get that. Um, the but Television for me, they were the band that I think if they had a different guitarist and a different singer, they would just sound like a 70s rock and roll band.
Sure.
But with Tony and Lee, the way that they combine and the cleverness in their lyrics and their song
Yeah,
structure and
yeah,
stuff like that, there was nothing like it.
yeah.
They completely reinvented 70s rock and roll.
Yeah. I really like How to Make Friends. Like that album was like so
Yeah,
huge for me at the time, and I remember because that came out like just after or like pretty much simultaneously with like roundabout when Kurt died and stuff. And I remember
yeah,
going on a holiday with some friends, and that album was like kind of like really made us like really like happy, as opposed to
yeah,
like a lot of the in therapy
yeah,
and everything. A lot of it like dwelled on like I'm awkward, I'm negative, I'm whatever. Do you know what I mean? And
yeah, yeah,
so like that one was like buoyant and like still a bit like I'm weird and I'm not like everybody else, but I'm quite like having a good time anyway type thing. And so
yeah,
I remember telling them at a signing that I was doing, and they like really appreciated because I was like really depressed, and then they kind of like lifted me out of it or whatever. So I told them they're like really chuffed about it and put me on a guest list for a gig, which is pretty good.
Oh,
So yeah,
brilliant, brilliant.
so really lovely guys. And then later on, we played with Malibu Stacy, Smilex played with
Oh, yeah,
Malibu
yeah.
Stacy, so that was cool to
Uh-huh.
play with someone from a band that I actually. And I remember one Glastonbury seeing, and it was so muddy, it was so horrible. It was like if it was in the state that if it had not had bands playing, they would have been airlifting people out, going, "Oh my God, what a disaster!" Do you know,
Yep,
like this.
yep.
If people had been out hiking or something, they would have been, "Oh no, hikers are trapped on a muddy slope, getting drowned." And instead, they're like, "Oh, it's Glastonbury as usual," and
Yep, yep.
and we were like miserable and it's raining and everything. And then the first band that we saw on like the Friday afternoon or whatever, like or early, like just after lunch or something, was TerraVision. And afterwards we were like beaming. Do you know what I mean? Like absolutely beaming. So yeah,
Yeah, they're brilliant. They've just got so much energy live. They're just so good
yeah,
at what they do.
yeah,
Yeah,
wicked. Yeah. So who
yeah.
else then?
Well,
What's the
as
weirdest
well as
record
that,
scratch then?
I kind of followed it, and when the sort of punk revival came back, I loved Green Day and Rancid, and then I kind of went back and got into like the Sex Pistols and the Clash and all that. So
Yeah, yeah.
um, it's and then sort of after that, I never really got into new metal, so I kind of
So hang on,
stopped.
wait. I just want to. Sorry, I'm just going to go back.
Uh,
So you got into the Sex Pistols and the Clash via Green Day and Rancid.
yeah, yeah,
Really?
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So
That's crazy.
I was a complete rocker, and
Yeah, yeah.
then
Even to
I
the
had
degree
long
that
hair down.
you didn't like the Sex Pistols.
Well, it's not that I didn't like them. I just
Never
never.
investigated
I
it.
was never exposed to them. Like when I
Right.
was growing up, my dad had three CDs in the car. He had Dire Straits, Brothers in Arms.
Oh, I
He
know that
had
one well.
he
Yeah.
had Chris Rea's Road to Hell, and he had the Best of the Eagles,
Oh,
and
wow. Yeah.
like they were on all the time.
Do you ever find like, oh no, I've rewritten that Chris Rea song by accident?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Amazing. Yeah. Right, yeah, okay, that makes a lot of sense. I'm really lucky my dad was like well into the Sex Pistols and loved even Sid Vicious's version of My Way. He took so much pleasure in. I
Yeah,
think because his parents were into Frank Sinatra, he took great pleasure in like, that being destroyed for them. Do you know what I mean? Like, and so
yeah,
so I grew up and he took great pleasure in the second half of Vacant and the way that that was
yeah,
pronounced and everything would like say it to me, even though I was blatantly too young to have that exposed told to me. But yeah,
yeah, yeah,
so I was like, it's funny when I first ever saw NWA, I instantly thought, oh wow, this reminds me of when I first saw the Sex Pistols, like the sense of
yeah,
danger and the sense of like this is going to piss off everybody, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? Like that.
yeah, yeah. No,
So
I
yes,
get it.
I think I get, yeah, maybe my music, I get it more out of like what I feel off of each thing, like than necessarily group it up by genre. If you know what I mean.
Yeah, yeah,
My mixtapes can be pretty weird.
yeah. No, I don't think it's much. I think all those kind of moved in each other. Like, uh, I loved like Nirvana and Soundgarden and Pearl Jam, and I
Mm,
still love those bands.
yeah,
But the punk was kind of my entrance into uh, playing myself and starting to write,
sure.
because everything up until then, if you thought about it, all the metal bands, they were all really accomplished musicians,
Yeah,
and even in the rock bands and even the grunge bands, they were all really, really technical at what they did. And punk just kind of took it back a step and
right.
just kind of
That's interesting.
same as probably what it done in the 70s.
That's
Uh,
interesting that you say it.
yeah,
For me, Nirvana was literally the thing that did that. Like, because I was like into Guns N' Roses and into Prince and all that, like
yeah,
stuff for virtuosos and like
yeah,
that you'd need a big studio for, or whatever. And then I saw bands playing like Breed and things like that. And also when I heard Smells Like Teen Spirit, I was like, well, this is kind of as simple as Wild Thing or something, isn't it?
yeah,
So there was like definitely, but then I think you're right. Like there's some like really good players in the grunge set. So but I think that was
yeah,
quite good because it inspired people to kind of like start at
yeah,
Breed and then learn Spoon Man or something. And do you know what I mean?
yeah,
And so they can kind
yeah,
of get. And before you know it, you've got little 17-year-old kids trying to play Living Color.
yeah, yeah. But I think grunge is a weird sort of label as well,
Mm.
given that there's absolutely
Or,
nothing in common with Nirvana and Pearl Jam, for
or
example.
Smashing
What?
Pumpkins.
Yeah, yeah. So I would always say that Nirvana were a punk band.
Yeah.
They approached it. They used as few chords as possible. They tried to. It was all noise and attitude. Like
Hmm.
they,
Yeah, their whole approach to even how they,
yeah,
approach the media or anything else was totally punk
yeah.
rock, basically, wasn't it? So yeah,
Yeah, and
yeah, it's
maybe
true.
they did. They just opened the door for everything that came after.
Yeah, I guess Tad and Mudhoney and things like that would have been more like actually comparable to, but they didn't necessarily sell the units that some
Yeah,
of those others. Maybe because they didn't have as many kind of big rock hooks and big rock, like
exactly. Yeah,
traditional things. I mean, Pearl Jam and Soundgarden draw a lot from like Led Zeppelin, and I mean,
yeah,
I guess Nirvana do too, but you would have to look quite deep into it before you actually realize that. Do you know what I mean? Like it's more in the John Bonham than anything. Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
So,
yeah.
um, and yeah, but then Soundgarden, you can literally go like, oh yeah, that's very very Zeppelin. Do you know what I mean? Or
Oh,
so,
the Soundgarden. It was more like Sabbath meets Zeppelin.
sure,
You could hear them in their guitar
yeah,
Sabbath all the time. Even half the riffs were kind of like Sabbath riffs
yeah,
or
yeah.
put together,
Yeah, I always
kind
say
of.
that the three Zeppelin, Deep Purple, and Sabbath are basically responsible for like so
Yeah,
much of you know what I mean, so much of the rock that draws from certainly the blues kind
Yeah.
of thing. Obviously, Cream before that as a kind of, Cream and Hendrix almost as co-instigators of that,
Yeah.
I think.
But I liked I still love Alice in Chains.
Yeah,
Um, and they were more a metal band.
absolutely.
Um, yeah.
Facelift sounds like extreme pornography in places.
Aye. Yeah. No, well, Facelift's a rock album, and everything after that's metal.
Right.
But
Yeah.
they were like touring with Metallica and stuff like that.
Sure.
So they always got on the metal tours.
Yeah. Well, I mean, most of those bands like were going a bit before Nirvana broke, and then they got their
Yeah.
kind of big
Uh-huh.
albums. So they would have
And
had
then
to
got
have played with
folded
all those
into
people. Hmm?
then
What,
get
sorry?
folded into then they got folded into
Yeah,
grunge and they were
exactly.
nothing like that.
And then somehow
Uh,
some others got kind of folded into an alternative thing, but weren't thought of as grunge, like I guess the Chili's and Faith No More and things like that.
yeah,
Kind of run
uh,
alongside it, but
Alive and uh, the Smashing Pumpkins. I think
yeah.
they fell into the
Yeah,
alternative.
alternative, yeah. Stone Temple Pilots got the tag of copyists, but
Do
we'll never know.
you know what? I still love Stone Temple Pilots.
Yeah,
Um,
you don't need to tell me.
yeah.
My
I mean, the
history of Stone
album,
Temple Pilots love is too documented, actually.
yeah, but the album Purple, I think, is a perfect album. There's not a single
Yes, it
point,
is.
even the wee bits where they sort of go off to the tangent,
Yeah.
work
It's all
beautifully.
essential.
Right.
It's all essential
Yeah,
to the record. Yeah, that
yeah,
album was out that same time, that same like summer as How to Make Friends and Influence People.
yeah, yeah.
I feel like Bubblegum wasn't that old at that point as well.
No, I
I feel
think you're
like
right.
they
I
were
think you're
all
right.
roughly around the same kind of time. Yeah, I was already. Yeah, they're taking me back to like Little Lee. Yeah. So
Yeah,
okay, so back to you. So we're gonna have some EPs and then work your way to an album, and you're gonna have a live band, and
yeah, yeah.
yeah, that's like sounds like a plan. And anything else you want the world to know about you?
Uh, I don't think so. But what I'll do after this
Oh,
is
tell me about
I'll
the
go on.
song. The song.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. So the uh, the song that we've got in the singles club is called "You Have Every Right to Fight."
Yeah.
And the chorus goes, "You have every right to fight for what you believe is right, unless you are a racist bigot." So it kind of captured maybe the sort of mood in America last year, but certainly I think globally it's kind of relevant.
Yeah.
And for me, I kind of just wanted to make a statement just to say what side of that fence I was on. And if you're a bigot and a racist, then I'm not the artist for you.
Yeah,
um,
absolutely. Yeah.
yeah, but
Absolutely.
I do like political bands as well. So, like Bad Religion and Rage Against the Machine and Against Me, Rise Against,
Yeah.
and all this sort of stuff.
How did we not mention Rage Against the Machine when we were saying all of those bands,
Yeah,
eh?
yeah. And although I don't tend to approach those sort of songs. I do quite a few of them. I don't tend to approach them head on. This was
Sure.
probably the one I approached the most head on.
Yeah, same.
Um, but I tend to build a bit of humour and sarcasm into it,
Uh-huh.
and just. But I think there's still quite a bit of humour and sarcasm in this song.
Yeah,
But
absolutely. Yeah, I
yeah,
think it's I think just even the way that the chorus kind of drops in, it's like punchline or whatever. Like, do you know what I mean? It does
yeah,
set you up and then knock you down, if you know what I mean. So I think even with that, it's showing humor instantly. Do you know what I mean? I think, and then if you look into the verses a bit more and stuff like that, then you'll pick up some extra, fun bits or whatever. So, but yeah, and so. It's available on, as you said, on the Singles Club. And what people should know, especially if they're watching this back and feel like they're feeling really rich at the moment, is that they should join the Singles Club. They get the whole year's worth of stuff, and they get this. I mean, obviously, it's going to be streaming at the end of the month, so it'd be like a week early at this point, maybe. But they'd also be helping your campaign, because obviously the amount of money that we can chuck into the promotion comes from the Singles Club drive. So
Yeah.
so it would every penny, well, every subscription is not a penny, but yeah, helps.
Yeah.
And so yeah, so I was just checking the time, make sure that we're not going to cut out. But yeah, so you can go to www.quickfixrecordings.com if you want more information on the Singles Club, and you can follow you. Where are you on all the social medias, or are you just?
I'm on all of them. You convinced me to go on Twitter.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry about that. You'll see the benefit. You'll see the benefit with the radio stuff, and then you
yeah,
just got to
yeah,
stay off
I've
of
seen
it
that
the rest
already.
of the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other one, I went on to TikTok and I shared my own video, and then it got lifted for copyright reasons. So I think we're going through a weird sort of time now.
Oh
That if you're
yeah.
releasing your music officially, then it might come full circle on you, and you might get banned from putting your own video out.
Yeah, I mean that's that should be is that this song? It probably just needs to be whitelisted. So,
Oh, there
but
was
but they
I had
but they
this as
are
well.
really bad on TikTok, like really bad
Yeah,
on TikTok at doing at whitelisting stuff. So yeah, it is a pain. We've had it happen with a couple of the singles on the
yeah.
club, and that it's just like, what? This is ours.
I'm on my own. Who am I ripping off?
And also, like, if they're so good at this job, like, then how come we're not reaping all the money from like all the ones that like
Exactly.
are they out there looking out for us? Oh, I don't
Uh,
know. Obviously it's just us posting our own stuff and getting banned from doing it.
yeah, yeah. But there is a video for this song, which
Oh, brilliant! Yeah,
will which I should get this weekend back for
awesome,
the final cut. So, sort of to coincide with the official release, we'll have a video for the song as well,
wicked,
which will be equally uh, rebellious.
and charged.
Yeah,
Yeah, awesome, wicked. That's a good little thing to drop in at the end there. Were you saving that? Like,
yeah, yeah. No, I just remembered.
wicked, awesome. So yeah, we'll wrap it up because I think it will cut off any moment now. We're coming up to the hour and that,
Yeah,
but yeah, thanks for joining us, and thanks for being on the club, and thanks for the cool song, and yeah, thanks for being a cool guy in general, and everybody
thank you
go
very
and
much.
follow. It's T-Gun Finished, isn't it?
T-Gun
Yeah,
finished. Yeah.
on everything. My partner was saying, "Oh, I just think of it as T-Gun now because you keep abbreviating it everywhere. Can you like T-Gun this
Yeah,
and T-Gun that and everything?"
yeah.
So yeah,
I know. I get people I know that like push on. We're short on time, but I get people who say, "How do you pronounce your name?" And it's like Ian. like,
I'm not
um,
sure.
but yeah, try to explain it. It's like TG unfinished, the
Yeah, yeah,
great unfinished. like,
yeah.
yeah.
Awesome, wicked, cool. Well, yeah, I'll put the links down below anyway, and yeah, cool. Thanks for joining us, and have a good rest of your week. I guess it's only Wednesday, isn't it? So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
cool, man.
Well,
Awesome,
thank
and
you.
yeah, no
Pleasure.
doubt we'll speak. We'll speak again soon.
Yeah.
Take care, man.
Take care.
You leave the thing. Oh, and I'll play you haven't even heard these the Sexy Wild East remix of "You Have Every Right to Fight" to play us out. Wicked.
Oh yeah, excellent.
Yeah, you'll hear them soon. Don't worry, I'll send them over. I only just mastered them
Okay.
to make sure they're
Yeah.
ready. Take care, man.
Thank you.
Awesome. So yeah, that was Ian or Meech from the Great Unfinished, and you can get his single if you can hear me at all. You can get his single. It will be on Bandcamp on the next Bandcamp Friday, with remixes by myself, Sex Wild East, maybe a couple of others, and it's pretty mental, isn't it? Yeah. And also the single will be out streaming at the end of the month, and go and follow Great Unfinished. Thanks very much. Check out www.quickfixrecordings.com for more info on him, us, and all our bands. It's the best music, so go investigate. Thanks for tuning in, everybody.